Hi everyone, Arry here, chair of the US Blockchain Coalition and your host for Windshield Time podcast and also the Blockchain Underground. We have these AMAs every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific. Today we're joined by David Layton from Unchained Capital to talk about all things multi-sig wallets and Bitcoin. I learned so much and I hope you learned just as much as I did, if not more. Don't forget, we have these every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. You can sign up under the Blockchain Underground. And also, myself and Steve, we teach a course on Bitcoin, blockchain, and crypto fundamentals. We took a 12-week full-time, 5 days a week course and boiled it down into the most important things that you need to know in 8 hours. And so it covers everything from Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, IPFS, identity, OPSEC. You get this all in 8 hours. I spent years and years trying to figure it out. And so here we are making it easy for you if you want to sign up. Just sign up by clicking on the QR code. And I hope to see you in a future cohort. We have a bunch opening up in September, so I hope to see you then. And don't forget, we have these AMAs every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And let me know if there's anybody you want to see or hear from in an AMA. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful session with Unchained Capital's David Layton. Thank you, David, for joining us, and thank you for your time today. We are really excited to learn from you and hear all that you have to say. So, David, would you like to give a long-form introduction of yourself? Like, how did you get into crypto or Bitcoin specifically? Obviously you're more Bitcoin than crypto, but what does that mean to you? And then what is Unchained Capital and how did you come upon them?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, excited to be here. Happy to be here, Arry. We were kind of doing some introductions before you started recording here, but I don't think I touched on how Arry and I met. And that was towards the beginning of my, at the time, what was called a crypto blockchain journey. You're spot on. I've shifted since, more focused on Bitcoin. I work for a Bitcoin only company, Unchained Capital, as you know. But years ago, I think in early 2018, I had been watching Bitcoin, the whole industry kind of develop for about a year at that point, and found a meetup up in Seattle that Arry was putting on with her husband, Day. And I think the Bitcoin baby was maybe just 6 months old at that point.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Like
That's
so,
number two. Yep.
So you guys were actually my first interaction in person publicly talking about Bitcoin and just trying to figure out how I could contribute in some way, either going to meetups and finding companies to interact with. And I think one of the first, if not the first meetup I went to, Ikigai, Andy, Ikigai was doing a presentation, his first ever presentation about Bitcoin and the impact of at the time they're setting up this fund and kind of just talking about what Ikigai Asset Management was doing. So you guys had a major role in me kind of getting out there and networking and getting my feet wet in the space. At the time, I was working for a distribution company. So I'd worked for food service, specifically distribution companies, supply chain, managing big customer groups for companies like Cisco Foods, and Harbor Food Service was the one that was in the Seattle area. And in 2017, so about 5+ years ago, I discovered Bitcoin. I started to think about it and learn about it. It eventually became all I could talk about. So my, at the time, boss pulled me aside and asked if I'm in the right industry. After about 6 months of me orange pilling every customer group that we had, it would go from food to inflation to supply chains to how do we fix this to Bitcoin is the obvious solution. And eventually, fast forward a few years, I started reaching out to, so started attending a lot more meetups, started to learn a lot more, reading all of the books, all of the connecting with Saifedean, taking his courses, just kind of obsessing over this new technology, like most of us do. And then started reaching out to Bitcoin-only companies like Unchained Capital, like Swan Bitcoin, River Financial. So some of the companies that I really looked up to in the space, and became a client actually of Unchained Capital, looked at their product, looked at Multisig specifically for my own Bitcoin, and couldn't take no for an answer. So started to reach out and tell them what I know about, what I think about, my vision for Bitcoin specifically in the future, and connected with Parker and Phil over there and Justine. And it's been a little over a year. I've been teaching people how to self-custody their Bitcoin, teaching them about private keys, private public key relationships, and everything else that we do at Unchained, but specifically the education around how to take this, I call it like a digital bearer asset, essentially. It's fully digital, but you can actually own it and hold it yourself like a bar of gold, and just teaching people how to do that securely.
Can you talk more about digital bearer asset? What does that mean?
So I'm not sure if that's a term that other people necessarily use, but a bearer asset would be something like a physical brick of gold, something that you can hold yourself. Whoever is the bearer or whoever holds it is the owner of this instrument. So with Bitcoin, every Bitcoin lives in an address somewhere on the blockchain. And in order to move it from one address to another, you have to have the private keys or a private key to unlock it, release it. So if you own the private keys, or if you specifically, when we're talking about something physical, if you have a seed phrase that can restore those private keys, that gives you and you only the ability to unlock that Bitcoin and move it from one address to another. So for that reason, that's why I like to explain to people what Bitcoin private key ownership is it's actually taking physical ownership over something that is entirely digital.
Private keys allow you to have an actual bearer experience, like it as if it were physical.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of ways to look at Bitcoin, the network of Bitcoin, the currency, and all. I mean, everything that everybody on this call thinks about and talks about on a regular basis. And it's so hard to describe it in one way, right? Because it's like there's the analogy of the like 5 people standing around an elephant and everyone touches a different part and they think, well, it's a snake or it's this and that. Same thing with Bitcoin. So I always try to meet people where they're coming from. If they come from the economic side or the technical side, I try hard there, even though I come from the economic side, and just kind of meet them where they are about what this new technology is. So the bearer thing, I think it lands with a lot of people.
So then, like, you're coming from the economic side. Did you study economics, in school, or did you go down the rabbit hole and discover Austrian economics? Like, how did you come through the economic side?
Yeah, that's a great question. So working in, I intimately understand supply and demand, just working in the supply chain industry and distribution for almost a decade. Did not study economics in school. I went to Arizona State for a couple of years and decided I wanted to get right into the workforce, and I didn't want to do it in Arizona. So dropped out of school, moved to Colorado up into the mountains, and I initially started bartending and managing events for a catering company. Cool. And then got right involved with Cisco Foods and kind of worked my way up the chain there for several years up in the mountains. That's where I met my wife. She was actually a barista at a shop that I was selling to. That's a story for a different time. But yeah, the economic side of things, definitely discovered Bitcoin. I was a fan of gold and understanding, kind of trying to wrap my mind around what money is. Found Bitcoin, started to get involved with you guys in Seattle, and then I got introduced to Austrian economics. And yeah, so that's kind of my background on the economic side.
So then, just to dig in one more time,
yeah.
I mean, obviously you've landed in more of the Bitcoin camp than crypto camp. Why? Like, why did you decide to go after Bitcoin only companies like River, Unchained, or Swan?
Yeah, I might get in trouble answering this question, honestly, on a call of blockchain enthusiasts. No, I see. So I get asked this question a lot, and I always start first with the framework of value is subjective. So everybody's going to find things that they find valuable. I know that being involved in crypto or blockchain doesn't necessarily mean NFTs or ICOs or the stuff that gets a lot of popularity. There's a lot that is happening and being built in that, we'll call it that industry. Personally, Bitcoin landed with me. It is the I mean, it's the strongest computer network that has ever existed, probably that will ever exist. And it's something that, I fell down that proverbial rabbit hole and wanted to focus on something that I could build in, that I could build a career in, that I could just be able to describe and truly believe in. And that's not to say there aren't other things that have value, but I do believe I'll come out and say it. I am one of those people who believe that Bitcoin will evolve in layers, that it'll scale in layers, and that anything that is being built in the broader crypto market is only as strong as the foundation that it's being built on top of. So there's value all over the place. People are working on some incredible things. But me personally, Bitcoin's what I know. It's what really pulled me in. And I do believe that things that are getting built on top of Bitcoin, like Lightning, I used Lightning when I was down in El Salvador, just kind of like exchanging with people. And I think that there's some really cool projects and things that are being worked on that will be that, I'm sure you've heard the analogy that TCP/IP is BTCLN, and then other things will be built on top of it. So yeah, not to throw shade on any other projects here. It's just my personal beliefs for what it's worth.
Cool. I have a few questions that came in from the community that I want to ask, but before, since you said El Salvador, I want to learn, like, you went on a trip recently to El Salvador. So how was it? Is it really all that they say it is? Because we read a lot in the media. And so I'm always like, is it really, or is it just marketing? Like, what's really going down there?
So, okay, I'll preface this by saying, well, this is the reason why we had to reschedule this AMA. I found out a few days before My First Bitcoin program was doing their graduation that a couple of the guys, myself included, was invited to go down to El Salvador to help with the graduation. So quick trip. I flew down on a Thursday. I got back home on Monday. I spent the night in Austin. So really it was that 72-hour period where I was on planes down there. And most of the time that we were there, we spent it at the hotel or at the actual school during this graduation process. So we were verifying what the kids know about Bitcoin. They were able to send transactions and look at a block explorer, and they're doing all this over Lightning. We're covering wallets. So really, really incredible, powerful, and I think impactful project that's going on with Me Premier Bitcoin. So from what I witnessed there, and then just communicating with and talking to Ibex Mercado is one of the companies that have a lot of people in Guatemala and San Salvador. They're even in Miami, and they are down there, boots on the ground, talking to locals and understanding what Bukele has done to the community from a protection from gangs perspective, but also just giving optimism through this new tool that is digital sound money. So it's not all marketing. It's actually happening. People are very optimistic. The people that I talked to that are down there at the hotel, there was a prom going on at the same time as one of our dinner events. And I talked to the father of one of the girls that were here. The guy he said he had 750 employees. They had this big company that was in Latin America. He was very interested and optimistic about Bitcoin. His kids were. I was talking to him for a long time about this. So I did not get any sort of pushback on Bitcoin, any sort of skepticism like what you read a lot about. Right. Learned that Bukele has about like an 80 to 90% approval rating, and everybody was very happy about the changes that he's been making, which is, I don't know how I feel about this. Kind of implemented hybrid police state where if you're out and you're a gang member, you can get arrested. So very positive for the local San Salvadorans, but that's kind of a wild thing to just get arrested on the spot. Right. So that's kind of my overall view. I don't think that it's a marketing thing. I ran into Stacy Herbert down there as well, who she's amazing. She's absolutely incredible. It was my first time talking to her. She said that her and Max tweet where they're going in live time. Because I was asking her the same exact question, like, hey, I haven't gone out through San Salvador yet. Is it safe? Like, that was the first thing my wife wanted to know. Like, you're going to El Salvador? Is it safe? So asked her the question, and she said that, her and Max are public about where they're going. They go and they mingle. They don't worry about, you would think they're out there with a security team and there's a lot of protection and all this stuff going on. She said they've walked home at 2:00 in the morning and have not run into any issues. Just kind of, painting this picture of this very safe and sideline note, beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen. It's a very safe and beautiful place that I think is definitely in the category of a ascending or improving economy. And I'm extremely optimistic about what they're building and working on down there. And told them I would come back anytime, and anything that I can do or that Bitcoiners and people around my network can do, let us know, and we're going to try and make this thing happen.
It's pretty crazy because one of the things that I think Anthony Epman, Ikigai, told me was Arry, there's this game theory that's happening with 180 countries around the world around Bitcoin. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, the US, it's like me, Bitcoin, or like, bleh, we don't like Bitcoin. But there are 179 other countries around the world. And so what if, the bottom 50 by GDP adopt Bitcoin? What will that do? And I was like, oh,
yeah.
So the idea that El Salvador has done that or has started doing that, and is it really working, and will other countries follow suit?
So I'm sure you saw this somewhere on Twitter or in the news, but when Davos was going on, there were 44 central bankers from other countries that met in El Salvador, went down to El Zonte in Bitcoin Beach, and used Lightning, got lessons on how this technology works. So I think that's the big thing to be paying attention to. There are central bankers interacting with the Lightning network the wheels are turning. So it takes one person. Something I like to say, two things I like to say a lot. First, Bitcoin's property rights for 8 billion people. That's not an original thought, but that's, we're talking about different ways to describe this and what it is. That's what it is. It's property rights for 8 billion people. Anybody can go in and out of it. The other thing that I like to describe and just think about is that nobody that I've ever met or interacted with has ever seen it, has ever connected those dots, and then decided, nah, I'm just gonna go back to my previous beliefs about how money works or how we should rebuild the financial system. So each of these central bankers, if 2 or 3 of them even got it, then they go back home and they start thinking about, oh my gosh, we can implement something similar to El Salvador. People can tap into this and preserve their wealth and have this instant near free transaction layer. So nobody ever, backs out of seeing Bitcoin.
It just seems so crazy though, like central bankers are discovering Bitcoin and are going to go back and say like, this is better than what we're doing right now. Central bankers want to keep their power and preserve their power as part of the government, right? Or so what are you saying here?
Oh yeah, so what would happen is either they see how Bitcoin's working and they go home and they say, we should take the underlying blockchain technology and create a CBDC, right? Or create a closed network that's centralized, that looks like Bitcoin, but it's actually paper Bitcoin built on top of a CBDC, or our project backed by Bitcoin in some way. Or my point with 2 or 3 of them, if there are people that are thinking similarly to Bukele, that understand that fiat currencies are inevitably going to either be replaced or hyperinflate, right? Like there's only 2 ways that this goes. It gets replaced by something more sound, or it collapses. It only takes a couple of them to start thinking about this in a first principles way, attaching reality to the money. And that's my hope here. And that's my optimism about what's happening in certain places. And then I don't want to bet that people will never figure it out, or the ignorance of central bankers, or, you know what I mean? Like I'm optimistic, and maybe to a fault, that everybody, once they see what's happening, that they'll realize that it's something that they need to seriously consider, if not put a game plan together. So
switching gears, and then a few questions from the community that I had got previously, and then I'll open it up for everybody to ask questions for David. So, you teach people about multisig and public-private keys and, all that sort of stuff. What are some common, FAQs that you commonly see that you want people to know? And then what are some patterns that you see in the way people are using multisig or not using multisig, and when they come to you or Unchained Capital?
Yeah. And then read the facts pages and you pick up.
So yeah, I'll preface this by saying I have no idea what's going to be asked here. This is my first AMA, so I'm hoping you put me on the spot and stump me with some of these. But this is, yeah, so far this is fun. So common misconceptions or just common like FAQs that I would want people to know. A lot of the time, I would say it's actually very, very high. 9 out of 10 people will assume that Bitcoin lives on a device. Right. So that's the assumption, is that Bitcoin lives on whatever device. If I lose this device, then do I lose my private keys or do I lose my Bitcoin? So I already pointed to it earlier, but yeah, Bitcoin lives in an address, and the private keys or the seed itself is just information. It's data that lives on the device that allows you to interact with your addresses or your wallet. So that's probably one of the big things. The other big thing is that the importance of holding your own private keys. I think recently with exchanges laying people off and all the insolvencies that we're seeing with things like Celsius and Voyager, which I didn't even know existed, Terra, Luna. I mean, we can go on with all of these things.
Yeah.
People don't really understand the counterparty risk that they're getting themselves involved in when they trust a custodian to hold their Bitcoin or any asset for that matter. So I always try to hammer in that if you are trusting a custodian or an exchange or an app or anything other than holding your private keys, you don't actually own Bitcoin. You have an IOU. You have a promise for that Bitcoin, but the exchange goes down. Something happens to like what we've been seeing happening and having these massive cascading effects. Your Bitcoin is gone. So those are two important things. Bitcoin lives on the blockchain, not on the device. And then if you don't own your own private keys, if you didn't set it up yourself and put it in an address that you built or that you have, it's not actually Bitcoin.
Not your keys, not your crypto.
Not your crypto. That's right.
That's the thing that I think most people don't realize, is that custodians, when they take hold of your crypto and they're giving you 2% interest or whatever yield on it, they have, I guess, the legal ability to do whatever they want with your crypto. So they can go and loan it out. They can go and trade it for something else. They can invest with it, or right?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we've all seen the news, and somebody else on here may even be able to describe it better than I can. But at a very high level, it sounds like what was happening recently is that all these companies were, and we'll list off any names again, but they were kind of moving client funds from one place to another, and it ended up the protocol. I think it was the Anchor protocol was the last remaining one where people were getting 20% yield. And if you look, and that was still before interest rates were starting to bump up. So you're looking at like a savings account has a percentage, a fraction of a percentage of yield. And there's this vehicle off in crypto land that has 20% yield. And a lot of people did not see a red flag there, or didn't see like that there was probably some, I think the term would be rehypothecation, or just irresponsibly lending and moving things from one bucket to another until it inevitably reality caught up to them. And it's unfortunate to see any loss from anyone, especially a lot of people put their life savings into these things. But the red flags were there, and people were talking about this for a long time. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it also cleans out a lot of the bad actors and allows us to stomach where are we at now, 70% drop in overall price, 80%. And then the ones that are strong, have a good balance sheet and have a good business plan, are not lending out people's Bitcoin or assets. They are the ones that survive, accumulate more capital, more assets under management, and build that strong foundation that I've been describing.
Yep. It's if you move too fast, you're gonna be fast to burn out. Slow and
Yep.
steady does win the race, especially in this game here.
Agreed. Fully agree.
So now switching gears, and then I'll open it up to y'all to be able to ask questions. I'm gonna read this because I don't really know the answer to this myself either. Is Blue Wallet on mobile basically the combination of a hardware signing device, parentheses, cold card, Trezor, ledger, and parentheses, plus Sparrow software on any internet connected computer?
Okay. I might have you read part of that again. What I'm getting is Blue Wallet essentially the same thing as a hardware device that you can back up the seed phrase, only it's fully mobile?
A hardware signing device plus Sparrow? I don't know anything about Sparrow. Software on an internet connected computer. I typed it in if you want to read it.
Cool. So I would say, all right, so Blue Wallet on mobile, basically the combo of hardware signing device, something like a cold card, I think you said, plus Sparrow software and internet. So I think there's a couple of things here. Start with Sparrow. Sparrow is like a desktop multi-sig coordinator. That's what I use it for. I don't believe that you can generate single signature wallets with it, but Sparrow would be the most advanced thing out of what is being described here. So part of how I said I teach people how to create multi-sig wallets. Part of the recovery process, or what we can all do on our own, is upload or add XPubs to Sparrow as software connected to our own node, and then we can interact with a multi-sig wallet directly using Sparrow. Blue Wallet, I use Blue Wallet in a single signature format where you will get your recovery seed words. So seed words are like the human readable version of your seed. Seed is where like private keys and everything is derived from. So Blue Wallet in that aspect is a mobile wallet that you can generate a single signature wallet. You can back it up using those seed words. And if it has further functionality than that, I have not used it. So asking is Sparrow kind of like the combination, or is Blue Wallet combination of hardware signing device plus Sparrow? I would say that it's not, because it would be the least advanced out of what is being described here. And then the hardware signing device, like a cold card, ledger, Trezor, passport, those are essentially devices that do two things. One, they can generate a seed randomly, and then two, they can sign transactions. So they're signing devices to move Bitcoin, like what we were describing before, from one address to another. Mm-hmm. I don't think I answered that question. I just gave the highlight of what Blue, a hardware wallet, and Sparrow does on its own. But if Blue does have this functionality that is more advanced than what I'm using it for, which is a single sig wallet, I apologize for not being able to dig into that.
No worries. And then I'm copying and pasting the next question.
Cool.
Does Trezor and Ledger also need to be paired with software like Sparrow?
A lot of Sparrow questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll preface my answer to this by saying Sparrow specifically, I've used as a multi-sig coordinator, so a multi-sig tool. Does Trezor and Ledger also need to be paired? So Sparrow, when I say something like a multi-sig coordinator, or it could also be like an interface to the blockchain. So you can set up a wallet or restore a wallet using an interface like Sparrow, and that allows you to retrieve your addresses where they are and interact with them. When you go to remove any Bitcoin from any of these addresses, you need to give permissions or signatures, and that would be through wherever your keys are living. If they're currently on a Trezor and a Ledger, then yes, you would need to plug in the Trezor, provide a signature for key number 1, then plug in the Ledger, provide a signature for key number 2, and then you can move Bitcoin if you're using Sparrow as a multi-sig coordinator. So yes, I would say it can be paired.
Can be paired.
Can be used through. And I think the big takeaway would be that Sparrow or Caravan or Electrum or Spectre or Unchained Capital, they are all relatively, they're very similar tools to where they are interfaces to interact with the Bitcoin blockchain. So that's what it is. It's not necessarily your Bitcoin lives on Sparrow or anything like that, or the Trezors need to be paired to use them. They're interfaces, and when you go to move Bitcoin, you would need to provide signatures from the keys that live on the hardware devices.
Cool. And then here's another copy paste.
Cool.
As long as we have our backup 24 words, are we supposed to be able to recover our Bitcoin through any hardware or software Bitcoin signing device? As long as we have
it's a really good question. Yes. So you with 24 words, there's also 12 words, I think 12, 18, 24, and the other one's odd. It's like 31 or 33, which I haven't personally used, but that is your recovery seed, BIP39 seed, mnemonic seed words. There's all this different terminology for what those words are. But the easiest and least technical way I like to describe it is that those words are the human readable version of your seed, or sometimes I'll just describe it as the human readable version of your private keys. So that's kind of an easy way to jump over the seed and get right into like private keys. So as long as you have those words, you can restore your seed and effectively keys on any device that adheres to the BIP39 protocol. And BIP39 word list is a list of 2,048 common English words that, you know, behind the scenes, they're just zeros and ones under those words that translate into, in an easy way to read, into your seed, which is something that you're never necessarily going to interact with. So yeah, hopefully that's a good way of describing that. It's not necessarily recovering your Bitcoin, it's recovering the keys that then allow you to provide signatures to move your Bitcoin from A to B.
Right. Yep. I remember that.
Fun fact on that. I did a deep dive in BIP39 when I was just trying to wrap my mind around it a while back. And there are at least 8 different languages that the BIP39 word list has been translated to, or maybe just, I don't know at what point they picked 2,048 words and then started to translate it. But one of the Chinese versions is just symbols. So when you think about what is behind, I try to think about what's behind these words. It's just zeros and ones. It's a representation of the seed, but you can you can back up your keys in several different languages, which kind of helps you wrap your mind around I don't know, like what's technically going on behind the scenes there, which if you ask me that, I probably would want to pull one of my engineers in. So we'll just keep it high level.
Very fascinating. And then if a person doesn't want to mess with an additional software on top of the hardware, what if you start with 100% software wallet service of like Blue Wallet, then recover all the Bitcoin with a cold card with the 24 backup words, and then leave all the Bitcoin accessible only on the cold card, deleting the Blue Wallet?
Cool. So Blue Wallet, I'm not sure if Blue Wallet is BIP39 compatible. So when you're thinking about mobile wallets and hardware wallets, some adhere to BIP39. So that was the explanation from the last question. Some, like I know Moon has, the backups are like these 4-digit, there's a set of 8 4-digit alphanumeric lines. And that's obviously not BIP39 because those aren't the common words. Hypothetically, if there was a piece of software that you could generate a seed, back it up using the BIP39 word list, we'll just start from that. Software on top of the hardware. What if you start with a 100% software wallet service, recover all the Bitcoin and cold card? Yes, you could. So if it is BIP39 compatible, the same words, then yes, you could recover Bitcoin with a cold card using the same 24 words. And then you would be able to delete the first device, which in this example is Blue Wallet. But I would like to give an example of, this is hopefully an easy way to think about it. I have a ledger here that I could generate a seed. I could back up the seed words and write down those 24 words. I can then take those 24 words over to this Trezor. I can load them into the Trezor, and then I can wipe this device or throw this in the trash or do anything with it. And my keys and my seed will then live on this device over here. So long as it's compatible with BIP39, you can move your keys and move your seed from any device to any device. It can even live on 1,000 different devices at the same time, which that's also like a FAQ misconception. You can have your keys on an unlimited amount of devices at the same time.
That's true. That's true. I remember that. There's this one instance, I don't know if I told you, I told a few people, like back in the day after our ICO, came off from the Cayman Islands with my, luggage, and one of the ledgers had $10 million of Ether on it. And then that day, I went to the office, worked, our house got burglarized, and the burglars took off with everything. I mean, even my handbags and like dresses and stuff. So they took the suitcase with the $10 million ledger in there, and I had stupidly put it inside the box, and I had the PIN code and everything written down there, but I had the seed phrase somewhere else. And so as soon as I came home and discovered that we'd been burglarized, we were like, grabbed the seed phrase and then moved the Ether out to a different wallet, and we were saved.
Is that a real story that happened to you?
It's a real true story.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
That was
So, okay. So here we go.
Phrase. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow.
That's incredible. And I would say the benefit of multisig and the stuff that I'm sure are going to touch on is that if that happens, your Bitcoin's still safe, or your Ether or whatever. So if that's why I'm such an advocate for multisig, because if you can lose, if you think about the setup of like collaborative custody, you have 2 devices, 2 backup seed phrases, and then someone like Unchained or Casa does this too. There's companies that do this collaborative custody. We have one of the keys also. So you build that wallet using 3 keys, and in that setup, you could lose both devices and one of those seed phrases. And if you just have one seed phrase, you can get a second signature over here, and you can move your Bitcoin to a safer place. So that's the power of multisig. In that scenario, and I'm not sure if you can, I think you have to build something that's a little more intricate to protect ETH in multisig. But in that scenario, if somebody gets one of your seeds, or they have a device with your keys loaded on it, can't do anything with just one key. So multisig is the solution to that. But holy heck, I'm glad that you got that back.
Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do an ICO. That's the lesson. Don't ever do an ICO.
I wasn't planning on it.
All right. Opening up questions to everyone else. Who wants to go first? Just use the reactions button, or feel free to type it into the chat window. Otherwise, I'll keep going.
No questions. I answered all the questions already.
Jerry says, for tax purposes, do wallets in general track cost basis across all Bitcoin transactions from N2, even across exchanges?
So you can, for tax purposes, depending. So yeah, I mean, all transactions are obviously on a public ledger. So it's something that you can go back and take a look at. Typically exchanges keep track of all of those transactions. But you would, for tax purposes, I would probably say that the smartest thing to do if you are buying and selling, I would never recommend the selling part, but transacting frequently, to work with a company that does that, like you can put either XPubs into or specific addresses into, and then you can track the price of said asset when you buy and sell. TaxBit is one that I haven't used, but I know that exists. There's some other ones that people use.
Challenge. Sorry, David.
Yeah.
Challenge. Sorry, I might as well just voice it. The challenge is that it'll track the transaction. I moved X 0.034 Bitcoin from one wallet to another, or one place to another, whatever it is, or I acquired more. But you need to know the cost of that transaction at that time, right? And the beauty of fiat is that it's old school and it's end of day, whatever for any kind of asset. But the challenge and the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's highly variable based on the nanosecond that you've actually acquired it, right? So at that price.
You're right.
So I'm just wondering if there was anything that the wallets do to track what is and then how do they determine what is the actual price at that point, right? The price of Bitcoin is one of the hardest, we know this from data. It's actually hard to understand what it actually is in terms of its relation to fiat US dollar?
So that's a good question. I don't know if I can answer that or give you the answer that you're looking for. I know that so specifically to what you and I talked about, you're in the analytics, we'll call it Bitcoin industry analytics, with retirement accounts specifically. There are, gosh, I'm trying to remember the exchange. I think there's a couple of exchanges that would be looked at as like, hey, what was the open and close? And they would take maybe 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. or whatever it is,
Right.
and marry those. And that would be what you would report end of year to the IRS if you have something like Bitcoin in a wallet that, or I'm sorry, in a retirement account, effectively. But I don't think I have an answer for that.
Okay. No, I was just curious. I was curious what Unchained Capital does, and because that's the big problem, right? As we all discovered from 2021, actually understanding the cost bases is a challenge, and actually understanding what costs are we actually, or what's the price point we're actually looking to compare from point A to point B. Mutual funds have the NAV settled at end of day 4 p.m., but what do you do for Bitcoin? And that's the number one challenge within retirement instruments.
So,
and right now they're okay, but the key point is you can actually watch sales before the end of the year, so you can do tax loss harvesting like you couldn't do before. So now there's a lot of people that are converting into Bitcoin just for the tax loss harvesting and the wash sales, which is beautiful while you got it, right? And it's going to be a short window before the IRS catches on and says, nope, they want their fair share. I don't know how fair it is, but they'll want their share. Sure. I mean, for better or for worse, that's the regulations are coming. So
sure.
I was curious.
Well, and that's something, yeah. And you ask like, at Unchained specifically, that's not something that we encourage or help facilitate. No, our motto on the back of our shirts, right? I'm sure you've seen this somewhere, but friends don't let friends sell Bitcoin. As a company, this is you own your private keys, you don't sell Bitcoin. That's why, our Bitcoin collateralized loan product, we have a team of people that, especially when price is volatile, that around the clock are calling. I'm talking 2 a.m. We'll call clients up, make sure that they add collateral to not get liquidated. It's something that we take very seriously. You hold this, it's multi-generational wealth. You're not trading it. You're not tax harvesting. If you want to, though, we facilitate the purchase of Bitcoin. So we've been an OTC desk for years, and now we're actually we've released kind of a beta mode of in app or in platform purchases that we've rolled out to select states and to some clients. And this is something that we're going to keep moving forward until everybody can purchase Bitcoin as much, however much they want from wherever they are. Arry's given the thumbs up. I'm in Idaho. She's in Washington. That product does not exist yet in our 2 states. We're working on it. But so that's the way that Unchained kind of looks at it. I should have prefaced all this by saying, don't give any tax advice. Nothing that I've said is tax advice other than don't sell Bitcoin. But yeah, we don't get too far into the weeds with that. But anytime that you do purchase Bitcoin through us, we can generate a statement to show the US dollar denominated price and the amount of Bitcoin timestamp. But we're not even a custodian, right? We just help people build multi-sig wallets. We're a collaborative custodian. Right. So there's not buying and selling that happens on our platform. Gotcha. It is, you will purchase Bitcoin from an exchange, do your trading over there, and then you hold what you're not selling in multi-sig for the long term.
So the wallet, okay, got it. The wallet is your private key. That's really what you're focused on, and what the transactions are and the exchanges are separate from Unchained Capital.
Yep. So we have a few different products, a few different services, and at our core, it's those 2 things that I said: private key management, making sure that all of our clients have a safe place to custody their Bitcoin that is not us, but we can hold their hand through the process of creating that safe place, and then we look at, all of us on the team look at Bitcoin as multi-generational wealth, right? We see this wealth transfer that appears to be inevitable, and Bitcoin is going to play a major role. Some of us crazy Bitcoiners even think that believe that Bitcoin will be global reserve currency for a lot of reasons. But this is that's at the core of everything we do, is basically just making sure people have a safe place with 0 single points of failure, incredibly fault tolerance for the portion of their wealth that they do not ever want to get rid of, but they can, because we have no control over it. So they can.
Well, I'll just throw this last comment, sorry, and then I'll shut up. But my only comment with regards to 90-day wash sales, right, is that you don't have that 90-day rule anymore. So right now you don't for Bitcoin. So
gotcha.
The idea being in Q4, for example, it doesn't, like, to this right now is a perfect time. Bitcoin's down, you sell it off, you reset your cost bases, you count a loss, but you actually don't you sell it off and you buy it back.
Yeah.
You don't actually diminish net your store of Bitcoin, right? But what you've done is reset the cost basis accordingly, right?
And that is something I know that I mentioned Swan once earlier in this conversation. They're another company that's Bitcoin only. I think the team over there is incredibly strong. They focus on education. They do walk people through that process of, the term's not tax harvesting, is it? Is that the?
Not exactly. There's a broader set of strategies with regards to tax loss harvesting or tax harvesting.
Sure.
There's just the wash as part of it. One technique is the wash sale. Whether if it's high, you can sell it off and you reset the cost basis very high. If you really want to diminish your or decrease your taxable income, you can sell it now. It's at a loss and then rebuy it. But you haven't really net. You have, if you're lucky enough to have 100 Bitcoin, you still have 100 Bitcoin. All you've done is go through the process of selling it and rebuying it like 3 seconds later.
Right.
So that only difference. Yeah, sorry.
But don't you still have to deal with the taxes? Like if you bought Bitcoin, I guess if it's a loss, it's okay to sell now. But if you have a gain, then you're paying Washington State, we have like a pretty high tax on capital gains, especially if it's over a certain amount of ROI, a certain amount of gains. So
yeah,
I think
So you have to that's tax harvesting, right? So the overall strategy is if you've got fiat income and if you actually had a business, whatever it is, and you had you experienced a business loss, you might balance that with selling your Bitcoin at high. I'm not providing tax advice, but you can balance that accordingly, right? If you've had a loss and you can count the gain and you're flat, then you end up now resetting the cost basis at a very high level. Now your profit's very high because ultimately you're going to have to pay taxes. Whatever we want to say about private keys and wallets, regulation is going to be coming. It's a federal, like they just released the Federal Reserve executive report. It's going to happen, whether we like it or not. We've talked about this already, CBDCs and the whole thing. It's going to happen. They're already starting to get their unfair share. But point being that you can start being smart now while it's the Wild West, and the IRS hasn't caught on yet or hasn't figured it out yet. And Q4, we had a lot of people go out there and do some fun stuff with regards to tax harvesting, understanding that the 90-day wash rule does not actually apply yet for crypto or for Bitcoin, or crypto at all. So anyhow, sorry, I didn't mean to take up so much time. I was just
interesting.
I was just asking about that. So
one last quick question, and then want to get David's info so people want to follow and David or Unchained Capital or get in touch. But Robert had a question, just wondering what algorithms you use for multisig. Is it built in one that Bitcoin offers, or do you use others as well?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, and that's one of those questions I would have loved to have like Buck Purley or Tyler Campbell, my technical director, in on the call for. No, so multisig is native to Bitcoin. It's not anything that we have done. We are just providing just an interface to interact with something that was here long before Unchained Capital. So there's some more that goes into like the address type. We use pay to script hash addresses, which can be used for multisig specifically. You have address type like taproot addresses that are being implemented slowly, but that's coming up, and those add kind of a privacy layer to multisig where everything looks like a single sig address. So yeah, nothing that we did specifically. I don't think that I would be able to talk to the you said to talk the algorithms involved, but it's not anything that Unchained has done. That's specially built. Now our transaction model and our platform is something that we have a tremendous group of engineers that are working on the backside to make sure that we're interacting properly with the blockchain and the open source software that already exists that is Bitcoin. Yeah, sorry, that's not a very.
No, that's good. You answered my question. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it sounds like you're basing it on the existing algorithms that are built into the protocol. You're not designing your own on top of that.
Yes, yeah. So that's my understanding. That is, I love to have conversations with our engineers who are building this stuff and just kind of like pick their brains about how, some of the technical stuff works. Not coming from the software dev or engineering background, this stuff's fascinating to me, and I like to think that I can hang in a conversation about it. But yeah, I'm constantly just like what we were talking about at the beginning of the call. I'm constantly learning more and more specifically about the technicals.
Awesome. Well, we're
As we go.
actually out of time.
For
Thank
sure.
you, David, and being with us, and thank you everyone for joining us for this call. David, if people want to get in touch with you, are you a Twitter or LinkedIn guy, or what's the best way to follow you, keep in touch?
Yeah. So thanks for having me, and I'm glad we got to answer a lot of questions. If anybody has any like last minute thoughts or questions, please feel free. I'll be super brief here. But I'm on Twitter personally at DM Late. That's DMLAYT. Unchained Cap is Unchained Capital's Twitter handle. We have a blog and a resource knowledge base YouTube channel. We're really putting a lot of effort into education around a lot of the topics that we covered today, but specifically multisig. And just how Bitcoin works in general. So we've done deep dives on UTXOs and deep dives on a lot of the technical components that go into everything that a lot that we didn't even cover today. So I'd say check out our website is unchained.com. At Unchained Cap is the Twitter handle. Just to give a high level on Unchained Capital, we could have started here, but my team, so it's actually Phil Geiger's team, the rest of the crew, Tyler, Tom, Carl, Jesse, Drew, we all we're on the Concierge Onboarding team. So Concierge Onboarding essentially means you get an hour with one of us. You have devices that aren't set up. You don't know anything about custody, and we bring you through at least an hour of teaching step by step how to set up the devices, generate seeds, back up the seed phrases, upload your XPubs. Our interface combines those XPubs and goes through the last iteration of cryptography that kicks out the multisig wallet. But you are going to kind of go through that. Getting a little echo, but yeah, so that's what my team does. We also do Bitcoin collateralized loans. I mentioned our OTC desk, our retirement product. The OTC is transitioning into a proper in-platform trading functionality, which is really cool. And we have we're trying to do a look out 100 years into the future and what does Unchained look like. So that's the mentality, the low time preference, build the foundation strong mentality of the team. Yeah, so that's kind of that would be my outro and where to find me, where to find Unchained. I see a hand up.
Yes.
I didn't know, Arry, are you in a rush?
Yeah, I have to run pretty quickly here, but you want to leave a comment?
No, I just want to ask a quick question. So if you can restore the entire wallet from one seed phrase and you hold in one of the key, you are one of the signatures on a multisig, then you can just take everybody's money.
No, so each key has its own individual recovery seed phrase. So multi-sig wallets are built using 3 public keys. Within your wallet, you have a series of addresses. That's where your Bitcoin lives. In order to move the Bitcoin, you need signatures from at least 2 of those 3 keys. And each of those keys has its own backup seed phrase. So seed phrases restore the seeds and the keys to devices, but you would need at least 2. So Unchained only has 1. Collaborative custody providers only has 1 key. So we can provide half of the signatures needed in order to move Bitcoin. And you can reach out to me one-off. I'd be happy to walk you through that as well. I know we're out of time.
Just ping me, Marina, and I can connect you to David. And thank you everybody for your time today. Thank you, David, for answering questions. And maybe we'll have to have you come back again and maybe bring your technical counterpart, and we can do more of even more crazy questions.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Happy Friday and have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, guys. Nice to meet you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Welcome to Windshield Time, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. This podcast is non-technical, fun, informative way to learn about money, Bitcoin, blockchains, crypto, and digital assets for busy parents and working folks who are curious about these new technologies. Day, Arry, and their guests talk about these evolutionary systems of money and what they do, y'all. Because what part of your life does money not touch? This podcast is not financial advice, and your reactions are your total and complete responsibility, y'all. Now, thanks again, and enjoy the show.
Stuck inside.